the Cannabis Business Coach.
Hi, Mike Z here, author of the Cannabis Business Book, and you're listening to the Cannabis Business Coach podcast, where I chat with and coach the highest performing entrepreneurs in the cannabis industry.
Hi, Mike Z is. Hi, Mike Z is. Hi, Mike Z is. The Cannabis Business Coach.
Hi, Mike Z here, and on today's episode of the Cannabis Business Coach podcast, I'm joined by the co-founder, chairman, and CEO of King's Garden, Mr. Michael King. And I see he's wearing the crown on his head proudly. There you go. So, Michael.
Everywhere.
Awesome. Oh, I love it.
Everywhere we go.
Thank you for joining me here today. I'm excited to speak with you. I've heard nothing but great things about your business, and I know that you guys are one of the top producers in the California market. So I'd love if you could just do a quick intro of yourself and your company for the folks that may not be familiar with you.
So, Mike, thank you so much for your time. Pleasure and honor to spend a couple of minutes with you and share this platform. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. It's all about the people. It's all about the people. Any industry, anything you do, it's about your team. You can never do anything alone, and all of our success I owe to my partners, the co-founders, Charlie Kiley, COO. Charlie and I started this together 6 years ago. We met through some mutual contacts. I was living in Florida at the time. Charlie was in California in this industry for about 15 years, doing everything from outdoor, indoor retail. And he was consulting on the project. I came in as a funding vehicle for that project. And, after a few minutes together, we decided we should do this together. So Charlie, COO, co-founder of King's Garden. Shortly after that, Lori Kibbe, our CFO, she joined us. And she was a, very important part of building our, all the back office, the legal, the documents, the accounting departments. Ultimately, workers' comp, which took us about 10 months to get, banking, of course. And then there's a few other key players. Ivan, who's now director of marketing, he was one of our first investors, and so on and so forth. But basically, all of our success we owe to our people, our cultivation, head of cultivation, VP of processing, distribution, et cetera, et cetera. And it's been 6 years strong. We started out with a very small operation, 16 lights in 10,000 square feet, almost 6 years ago to date. And it was our first, California was a different market. It was not easy to raise funds. So the first funds we invested ourselves personally. But back then, you didn't see companies going public. You didn't see hundreds of millions being raised for whatever, right? And the market being medical, not-for-profit market. The question is, well, how do you make money, right? So we decided let's do the first one ourselves together as partners, and let's make sure this model makes sense. That was 6 years ago that we met. Immediately after that, we were able to sign a lease, acquire the licenses, and we began. And it was, again, 16 lights in a 10,000 square foot building, because we didn't want to spend a lot of money not knowing if the model works. I have never smoked cannabis. I smoked cannabis in college. It was not my favorite thing at a party, right? I drank or whatever. I just had fun other ways. But I wasn't too familiar with weed. And I brought the business aspect of it. I said, okay, well, if we can make this make sense, explain to me how we generate revenue. Charlie brought in the operations, and it was, shortly after that, we realized, okay, well, if we could do this in 16 lights, well, let's turn the whole building on. Well, that works. Let's turn 2 buildings on. So that was now 20,000 square feet. Well, like, fuck it, let's go to 100,000 square feet. And so, over 6 years, we've been able to build 250,000 square feet of operations, operating 3,400 lights right now. And as of recently, you may have seen the news, we acquired another 200,000 square feet, and we're going to more than double capacity for additional 4,000 lights. And we're actually working on another large deal with the same company, IIPR, to acquire an additional 176,000 square feet to add 4 more thousand lights. That's sorry if that was a little bit long-winded, but that's that's how we began.
Wow. No, that's no sorries here. That's amazing. I'm curious if you could talk a little about your business background and what it was like for you to transition into cannabis, because a lot of people trying to get into this industry don't really have a cannabis background, and they're often intimidated. How do I transition? How do I find my way? How do I get involved? What's the right opportunity? And so on. So I'm wondering if you can speak to a little of your personal journey to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And you're 100% accurate. My background, I graduated from Pace University. I'm sure you're familiar, living right across the bridge. Grew up in Brooklyn when we immigrated from Russia 32 years ago. And I was always drawn to finance, to money, Wall Street being right there. So I actually quit college in my junior year to go trade on Wall Street. I became an equity trader, and I was Series 7, 63, and 55 licensed. And my first job was my first kind of like professional job was at 110 Wall Street for a company called WorldCo. And that's the street was buzzing with money, and I was drawn to money. And so that's how my professional career began. Ultimately, I ended up finishing college while working, but I changed a few firms. I was hired to run a trading team ultimately, and they trusted me with hundreds of millions of dollars for intraday trading for myself plus for the team. And I was very fortunate, with God's blessings, to make good money while I was very, very young. At that same time, I was traveling to Florida for vacations and North Miami Beach, just to get away from New York. During that time, uh, Sunny Isles, or the North Miami area, was the real estate boom was just beginning. So I don't know if you're familiar, but right just north of Bell Harbor, I'm sure you heard of it, which is a prominent, it's like Rodeo Drive in Los Angeles. Uh, a little city that's only about 1.5 miles long was starting to develop huge condos. And so I ended up buying a condo myself. I became very, very friendly with developers. And as I was, as I was trading, I was kind of like drawn to real estate more in South Florida because there was a huge opportunity. And I was making very good money trading. Ultimately, 9/11 happened. And then a year after that, a lot of rules and regulations changed on the New York Stock Exchange how you could trade. And so, besides the rules changing, also a lot of robots were now trading instead of people. So the skill that we used as humans was kind of like taken away from us. We couldn't utilize it as well as we did before. And it was actually perfect timing because I made some good money. I was a little bit tired of New York life. Now the business was not as lucrative. Real estate was booming in Florida. I made great contacts. And so I ended up moving to Florida in 2003, where I began a very lucrative real estate career. And that ultimately, between finance and having a finance, BA in finance, as well as experience in real estate for approximately 12 years, helped me transition to cannabis because I was doing a lot of private deals, private funding, mortgages, real estate transactions of all kinds. And with that knowledge, a buddy of mine told me about cannabis. At first, I laughed at him. I'm like, "What are you talking about? How do you make money with weed?" He said, "Well, Colorado, they're doing this and that." I said, "Oh man, Colorado. I like Florida." And I started really looking into it. Then in 2014, Florida had cannabis on the ballot for medical. And the more I started looking, it was going to be a limited license opportunity. the more I started looking at it, I'm like, man, this is interesting. And so I read everything that I can get my hands on. I had meetings, and that time, you couldn't have too many meetings because you just didn't know where to go. I started flying all over the country, going to every single event all over the country, trying to meet people, trying to understand the industry. I read thousands and thousands of pages on mostly useless stuff, but it was enough for me in those readings to understand that the most profitable, uh, I guess, sector in cannabis was cultivation, was specifically indoor cultivation. And so understanding that, I'm like, okay, well, that's what I want to do. I don't want to make jars or bottles or what have you. I understood enough that I cannot get into the concentrate game without having biomass, because then you're relying on somebody else. Uh, didn't want to do outdoor, didn't want to do greenhouse, because of the quality of product, as I started to find out. And so indoor cultivation was the only option. And ultimately, one day, and this is a funny story, because I was getting ready for Florida, and all of my resources were put into here, besides flying all over the country and meeting people. One day I go to sleep, and my wife says to me, "What are you going to do if Florida doesn't pass?" Uh, and I wake up, I'm like, fuck, well, let me start calling these contacts. And so I knew for myself, all I needed to do was get in somehow. And I began funding or financing other people's operations in California. I made some contacts, and it's a very, very small industry. Once you get in, you're kind of like you start to understand who the players are, who does what, and a lot of these were just because back then only the growers really, or the cannabis guys, or the potheads ran the businesses, because they're the retail owners, they're the cultivators. There wasn't a lot of like business sense at that time. Um, and having understood how things work by investing into the industry, um, I'm like, okay, well, I think I can do this by myself if I get the right person who can operate, because I can bring the funding, I can bring the business aspect of it, right, to make sure that it has value, that you could sell it. And so, like I told you, in 2015, I think it was, it was middle 2015 that I met Charlie on the project that I was asked to fund. Charlie was there consulting on it, and we realized that the guy in the middle that brought us there together, he was just useless. So Charlie and I spoke. We said, let's do, you got this incredible experience. I can fund whatever you need. And Charlie was known as a phenomenal operator. His product has already been known. He's been known. He operated, a couple of thousand acres up north. He had greenhouses, indoor retail. And I said, but the funding was the issue, right? I said, I can get you funding, and I can bring the business to this if you can operate. But most importantly, him and I got along. He's my brother, so we got along, and to this day, like, we've never had a misunderstanding, and that's how it began. But in order to get into the industry, I knocked down every door that was possible, not possible. I met people who, thinking back now, I should have never even spent a second with. But all of that led me to land in California, in that particular building, with those particular people. Because had any of those steps been missed, had I not read one page of the thousands that I read, or had I not taken a trip to Las Vegas or Colorado, where have you, outcome would have been different. So uh, that's, I forgot what the question was. Oh, but that's how I got in. That's how I got in. And we're able to take one project. So now we had a business model. We had 10,000 square feet. They were producing $2, $3, $4 million. We're like, okay, this is a business model with 40% profit. Well, let's raise money for the next project, and then let's raise money for the next project. And being in the real estate game for so many years, and just finance and business in general, I was able to, and because I was an investor myself, I knew what I want to see as an investor in order to invest in a project. So when we came to the investors, we gave them excellent terms. We said, look, for you, here's how much this project can generate. Here's how much money we need. So if I'm offering you terms, what do I want to give you? I want to make sure that you can return your money priority basis, meaning that 80%, for example, of all revenue generated after expenses are paid will go back to you until you're paid in whole. And then I want to make sure that you're making at least 30% ROI in your money after you pay back. Where do you find 30%? Nowhere. And so these are the terms. And because I knew it's risky, because I knew it's cannabis, because there was nothing else available, but these are people who trusted me. These are people who I had relationships with. I said, guys, I'll give you great terms. Here's the risks, but here's also the opportunity. And so it was very easy for us to. The difficult part was acquiring licenses, but raising money, we raised millions of dollars in 24, 48 hours. Once we were able to actually, acquire the contracts for that we needed the money for. And ultimately, the company ended up raising $55 million, all privately, all friends and family, if you will. Because if I did something good for you and you're making money, you're saying, okay, Mike, when's the next project? And then you're going to bring two of your buddies in. And then those two buddies for the following project are going to bring a few more buddies in. And because of that, we've been very successful in raising funds, not in a pool of money like you see most companies do. They'll raise their 100 or 150 or what have you. And then they have to go look for projects to acquire. Well, no, let me go get a project and then let's raise money just for that. We don't need to take in more capital than we need. We don't need to dilute the company. Let's raise exactly what we need. Let's give people what we're promising, and everybody's happy. And so we've been able to do that and grow from 10,000 square feet to 250,000 just 6 years later.
Wow, amazing. So I'm gonna reflect back some of what I heard there. So one thing that we have in common is also when I got involved, I also traveled all over the country, tried to talk to as many people as possible, read everything I could, because it was new to me. I had just been a consumer and I realized this is a whole new world. And to do anything intelligent in this space, I have to do research. I have to know what's going on, who's who, and how to even determine an opportunity from not. And so I hear that you did a lot of prep before even getting involved. And then I heard kind of step 2 was taking your existing skills and leveraging that to actually, have some kind of competitive edge, to be able to build something organically. So I heard you say how you knew how to think like an investor, you knew what the investors wanted, and you were able to offer deals that were attractive. So raising capital, which a lot of people think is like scary and crazy and difficult, for you was actually quite easy because you had relationships and you had that know-how, and it was really more about finding worthwhile opportunities and then getting involved. And one thing you didn't directly say, but I imagine it must have taken a bunch of patience, to pass on stuff and to, like you said, to travel, to talk to all these people, the whole process that got you to where you are. There was probably a lot of detours and distractions along the way that, didn't discourage you, that instead you were just kind of, hey, this is part of the process. And eventually you got into that building you mentioned, and you knew that, all right, this is the opportunity. I can operate here. This is, and I try to encourage people, you only need one good opportunity, right? It's finding that one good thing and then sticking with it and actually executing it well. And it sounds like, you had that kind of, again, I'm going to call it patience, to not have to, just rush in. I think that's the two biggest mistakes people make, is one, not being prepared, not doing that research and skipping that step. And then 2, rushing in. It's kind of different sides of the same coin, but, if you don't rush in, people always ask, is it too late to get into cannabis? No, it's going to be around forever. It's not too late. It could be too early if you're unprepared though, and then it'll really be too late. So I hear that you were able to grow the business in a somewhat, I'm going to say, tongue-in-cheek, organic way, right? Where you had good opportunities that needed financing that made sense. And so you took on outside capital when the business required it, when there was an opportunity to return that capital and to grow the business, as opposed to the other way around of just kind of throwing money at it and hoping the opportunity will present itself, which is, in this industry, there's lots of opportunities but few good ones. And
Absolutely.
so I want to ask you, as far as scaling up, especially on the cultivation side. Well, I have two questions. One is, do you still, in the long term, do you still see cultivation as the place to be, as the most profitable sector segment, indoor cultivation? And, how does that change maybe 5, 10 years from now, or post federal, or once there's more of an international industry? Will that still be the case? And then my second question is around, how do you scale up that cultivation and still maintain the quality and still, stay true to the brand and deliver for the customers? And I guess third question, I'm sorry, this is a bunch all at once, but the third question would be about actually just growing the brand. And there's a million companies in California. Aside from the actual product, what, if anything, have you guys done to stand out or to get market share, to build the brand? Or is it just the quality of the product, which, I believe as a consumer, at the end of the day, that's really, there's no substitute for that. That's really what people want. So I don't know, a couple of
Absolutely.
questions there.
My terrific questions,
Yeah,
and everyone is on point. I might have to ask you to repeat
no
the second
problem.
and third as I addressed the first, but I just want to go back real quick to, you and I are both Russian immigrants, and in pursuit of this, I had 3 kids at the time, and it's you have to be relentless in your pursuit of anything you do if you want to be successful. And trust me, I ate shit by the fucking bucketful, right? um, because nothing comes without that. But it's when it gets stuck in your throat right here, and then you force it down, and you say, "Give me some more." So you just have to be relentless. There's actually a great book by Tim Grover called Relentless.
Absolutely. Love that book. Yes,
Yeah,
amazing book.
Tim's actually been to our facilities. He did a little seminar for us. Him and I
Wow,
became great friends. After I read that book, I reached out and I said, "Come down." All of our top guys read the book. So anyway, but it just
amazing.
being, we know where we come from, what it took our parents to get here, and what we have to do. The example we got to set for our kids. I don't know if you have any or not.
Not yet. Maybe one day,
Okay,
God
well,
willing. Yeah,
when you do, and so just being ready to do anything at any time, and just do whatever it takes. And if you're ready to commit to the process, then it's not if it just went right. So I told my wife, I said, we're going to do, this is the industry I want to get in, and we're going to move from Florida, where we're living at the time. I don't know where yet, but I'm going to find an opportunity. And then there was, when you have money, surprisingly, there's, a lot of people offering you things. But I was traveling for about 2 years alone, with 3 little kids in a house. My kids now, well, that time they were 6, 4, and 2. And wifey held it down. She said, "You go do what you got to do." And I would leave, uh, be out for 2, 3, 4 weeks, come back, and I can get a call next day. "Hey, Mike, you got to come back." And I'll say, thinking that I'm actually going to be home for like a week or 2 or 3. And I get on the fucking plane and fly back with 1 stop or 2 stops. And then, it turns out that meeting was a complete fucking waste. And then I do it all over again for a period of 2 years. Um, so just being relentless for to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And if you are, then you will. So I just want to touch on that. And like I said, you and I have a similar background. We're no strangers to hard work. And so if people understand that and they're willing to commit to the process and understand that it's going to be a fucking painful one, they will achieve their goals. And now going back to your first question, which was in regards to indoor cultivation, sorry.
Yeah, do you, in the long term, do you still think that's the most profitable part of this industry?
Absolutely. So I was very specific in the part of in the subsector, or it's actually the main one of what I wanted to get involved in. And what happens a lot of the time is people start, they hear something, let's go do this, let's go do that, let's go do this, let's go do that. And then they end up doing nothing, or they end up doing like 5 things, but they all suck at every single one of them. We said, no, we're going to be, California is the largest market, cannabis market in the world, and is known for its weed. So if we're going to produce weed, we're going to produce it in California. And if we're going to produce weed in California, we're going to produce the best weed in California. Not saying that we're the only ones with the best, but that means indoor cannabis, which is the best weed, period, right? So knowing that, that's how we started. Um, being in the state, it's like, if you think about wine, right? You think of Napa. If you think of oranges, you think Florida. So I think I may be going to your second question, but cannabis cultivation, specifically indoor cultivation, will never go away because it produces the best product, period. There's nothing else like it. I don't care if this greenhouse has, every bell and whistle. It's still not indoor. It's still a greenhouse. It can have supplemental lighting. It can have a retractable roof. It can have all the AC in the world. It's still not indoor cannabis. And a lot of people make that mistake. One of those people was Saniva, which ended up, going bankrupt. Other people did whatever. But ultimately now what's happening is indoor cannabis will always be consumed as status flower because it's the best connoisseur cannabis that exists. Greenhouse or supplemental lighting can be good cannabis that's smokable. Outdoor cannabis could be good cannabis that's smokable. Different tiers, different grades. But in California, most of that is now being used as biomass, right? So we actually sometimes buy biomass for a manufacturing line, right? But that's not, if we're talking about producing, not, we don't care about producing the mid-grade or low-grade cannabis. We want to be producers of the best, and that's our market. And our model is a Costco model where we produce top tier cannabis at affordable price to the consumer. We're not trying to kill consumers for 60, 70, 80 plus dollar eights. We actually have a program where you can get our eights for $40 in the store. So now you're getting premium cannabis for $40 and a constant high quantity anywhere in the state of California. So indoor cannabis will always be around because it is connoisseur grade cannabis for people who love to smoke weed, right? Not to say that there's not a place for greenhouse for of different kinds. Not to say there's not a place for outdoor product of any kind. But this is our specialty, and that's what we're after. In regards to scale, it is absolutely, that was, I think, your following question. It is absolutely difficult to do this on scale, and many have failed doing it on scale. You've seen, I'm sure, maybe on Instagram through Blacklist or whatever, the horrific flower that Curaleaf was growing, all molded. That some other companies grow that Canopy was doing in Canada. This is nothing new, because when you go away from, anybody can take, a garage or room or even 10,000 square feet for that matter, and grow weed and hand water and all that. But when you get into industrial cultivation, which is what this is, it's a factory, right? Everything's got to be so dialed in. A 20,000 square foot building costs $150,000 a month to operate. You have one fuck up, well, shit, you just lost 4 months, and now you got to wait of work, and now you got to wait 4 more months, 3 months to get it back. That's bank, you know. So we operate, you know, when we talk about operations, it's flawless execution. It's like, you know, in our company meetings, we talk about flawless execution every single time on every single level. And by being able to implement just big pharma, big tech, uh, watering solutions, feeding solutions, water cleaning, filtration, and all that, you're able to do this at such scale. Some people get stuck, and they could be phenomenal, you know, and I always love the term master grower. There's no such thing. There's no master grower. There's just a good ass operator, right? There's a specialist in cultivation. Um, if you have a good grower who's used to a certain thing in 2,000, 3,000 square feet, where he's got to water the plants, he's got to see everyone, they cannot most of the time make the transition to industrial scale because they get overwhelmed. They have to change a lot of things that they're not used to, and the product goes to shit. And that has happened time over time. Luckily, you know, that's why I said it's all about the people. I couldn't grow a cactus, but I don't need to. My partner, who's a badass, he has been doing this for 15 years, right? So we're able to take one facility, given the resources. Okay, well, let's make sure, and we always built them to, you know, high standards without overspending money, but making sure that they're fully functional, operational, and uh, implement what we need to in order for it to be not a garage grow, but actually a factory. It takes, you know, and the smallest mistake with the feeding schedule, smallest mistake with the nutrients, smallest mistake with the lighting, AC going out, pesticides, God forbid. I mean, there's so many factors because at the end of the day, it's farming, right? It's still farming, except in an indoor situation, it's not as forgiving. You have to be able to pivot if something happens. You have, but you most importantly, you have to be on point. Shit's always going to happen, but you got to be on point. And by implementing those SOPs from the very start, we have been able to expand to where we are today. And regards to legalization, which I think was your third question, look, we are building now for that. So whether it takes a year, 2 years, 5 years, doesn't matter. We have the demand today for the state of California. And that's why we acquired this new facility. And that's why we'll be acquiring another facility to more than triple our production. When the states open up, it is my belief that when the federal government deregulizes, it is my belief that states will still try to have a say on operations within that state. What I mean by that, Florida, for example, where, you know, limited licenses, licenses sold for up to $80 million. They're not just going to let, you know, let's say tomorrow everything is good. There's no, it's federally legal. We're not just going to be able to ship cannabis from California to Florida because Florida is going to protect its license holders who, whether they paid a lot of money, a little money, they want to have control on that. So I think we're still some time away from there where cannabis can move from state to state, across states to retail locations, to distribution centers. That's going to take some time because that's just a massive undertaking. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen for sure because other countries are doing it with other countries like Canada and, you know, in Europe and Spain and Germany. So we'll figure it out. We'll get it, you know, that's going to happen. It's going to take some time, but for us, it doesn't matter. We have enough demand in the state right now. Probably if we had 1 million square feet today, we would still need another million. And with that objective, we're always like, what do we need to do today? So today, we're concentrating on what has to be done within our organization, which is we produce 45,000 pounds of cannabis on an annualized basis today. We're like, okay, we could use 3 times more. All right, so about 150, 160,000 pounds of finished cannabis on an annual basis. That's going to put us in where we need to be in the state of California. If during that time other states open, great, we'll make more money. But we're not building our business model on that. And sometimes, people jump around and they try to, let's do this and let's do the multi-state thing. And, we were actually in the process of going public. At the same time that MedMen went public, we were about to go on the roadshow. And having a little bit of a background in finance and being on the Wall Street and having a lot of friends who are brokers, but like real stock brokers, not like the Canadian stock brokers, where most of the stuff they do, that they should just all be in jail, to be honest with you, because I know the process of how it's supposed to be. And when we saw that we had to open up a round, so they were going to take us, just so you know, they were going to take us public at 650,000 million, 650. They were giving us $50 million at the time to go public. We were told, hey, well, you got to do like a family and friends round at 150 million, so that they can all participate. Their mothers, grandmothers, mother-in-laws, brothers, sisters, who are not like directly their names, can participate. They can get in at 150 million value. They take us public at 650 million value. And what happens to every stock that has ever gone public? Right? And we've seen MedMen from 2 billion, 1.5 billion to, it's not even 200 million today. I mean, acreage, harvest, we can go on and on. Companies bankrupt. And so about 3 or 4 days before we were supposed to go on the roadshow, I was like, guys, you're not going to destroy this company. And for perspective, at that time, we only did $8 million. So I'm asking, how the fuck we're worth 650 million when we just did 8 million bucks this year? This year we're going to do 30. So they're like, oh no, it's fine, but also, let's show more states. So they're telling me to revise our deck to show that what we're going to do in California, which we're actually are doing and hitting our numbers, we're going to be closing this year at 80 million. We're going to be doing 110 million dollars next year. They're telling me, well, just write on your deck 3 or 4 or 5 other states, and let's add 100 million for each of those states to be an MSO, right? And I told them, I said, you're out of your fucking minds, because you don't understand what it takes to build out 20,000 square feet and operate efficiently. I'm not going to do that. You guys are going to destroy the company that we bled to build. And we walked away from the deal. Every single banker was laughing at me, everyone. I told them, wait, we'll see who's laughing later. And you've been following the stock market right now. Luckily, there's a nice increase, but you've seen the massacre. You've seen the CEOs get kicked out, from Adam Bierman to everybody else.
Yep, that bubble burst, those crazy valuations that were sky high, and were probably good for the underwriters, but not so great for the operators and shareholders.
I sat in the front seat of that, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a fucking disaster. You guys just want to rob my company, and that's it. So we canceled that one out.
No. Oh, obviously the right move there. So good for you for getting out of there. I want to ask you, you kind of answered it already, I think, but I want to ask you, what's a common misconception about cannabis cultivation or cannabis business that isn't true? And I feel like you gave me 2, one about the IPOs, and that's not always the great way to go. It's not the get rich quick scheme for the operator. It doesn't necessarily help the business. But the other one was more, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds to me like, based on what you said, it's possible to go industrial and maintain high quality, which I feel like often, I feel like most people don't subscribe to that. So maybe that's the misconception that is not true, but I'm wondering if there's maybe something else, or if that's the one.
You're absolutely right. Little one, You're absolutely right. Many people think that when you go industrial, when you go big, you lose the quality. Absolutely not true. If you stay true to your SOPs, to the process, if you stay true to the process, the results will be the same. It is a lot of times, you know, people lose it. They lose the quality. It's true, but not everybody. And I think we've been able to prove that fact. But it's the only reason why that misconception exists is because they most likely have seen it or have heard operators fail at that scale when they increase it. Right? They have seen the failures, but it is absolutely not true. And a lot of people, I've had countless meetings with people who I just sit there and I truly feel bad for them because they were, everybody wants to be in the cannabis industry. It's a cool thing to do for many years now. And then you sit there in your office talking, or their office talking to these people. And for us, just so you know, most of these meetings are like, hey, we need an operator, we need somebody to run our facility because we either went through 5 different growers or we don't know what we're doing. And so we offer services, uh, design, construction, operations, licensing our brand, and all of that. And when I sit at the table with these people, sometimes I already know what's going to come out of their mouth before it does. And then I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, what the fuck are they doing in this industry? And then I'm thinking, man, I feel bad for them once they leave because these are people that should have never, ever, ever, ever been in the industry. Because what did they do? They raised money. They went to hurry up and spend the money on whatever without people to operate the facilities. That's the first thing you do. First thing you need is like someone who can, like, right? If you're going to be if you're going to own a race car team, well, first thing you need is a fucking car and a driver. You know what I mean? But these people go by the team, they go by the car, like, oh yeah, well, we forgot we need a driver and some wheels just in case. So this happens more often than not, and these people fail miserably because now, if they had someone, well, that someone built the place for their fit. Well, it turns out that they weren't able to perform. Now they're looking for somebody else. That somebody else comes in. Well, shit, I don't know how to operate this system. Well, let's change all of this and that. After they change all this and that, well, shit, they sucked, right? So what do we do now? And yeah, so but that happens quite often. Uh, the only thing I would say is know what you're going to do. And then people started cultivation. Well, I heard that manufacturing, let's go do manufacturing. Well, maybe distribution. Well, maybe pre rolls or edibles and then they end up doing nothing, years later. And they're like, oh, maybe we should have just stuck to something and just done that right.
A lot of maybe investors don't understand how important and difficult it is to find good operators in this industry. Let me ask you maybe one other question, maybe two. One is, I'm curious if there's any piece of cultivation technology that doesn't exist yet that you really wish you had access to.
Sure. And I really quick, I just want to answer your other question. I think I just
Sure.
remembered you asked about the brand.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So the brand, many, and you've seen this many, many times, and you'll see it many, many more. Um, a lot of companies just have a brand and then they try to launch the brand. Well, they forgot that they need, the product also for that. So they're now in the situation where, and we support many brands, but guess what? We support those brands through sales to distribution companies, wholesale basically, of product that, and it's an important part of our business. King's Garden is always going to have priority, but we also do wholesale, and then they'll go and repackage it. Well, they're never going to buy a pound of weed from us and put it in a jar on the shelf cheaper than we are, right? So now you have this beautiful brand, beautiful, beautiful packaging rather, and you have to keep sourcing the weed from different people. Well, today I'm giving it to you, for example. Tomorrow I'm not. Or if I see that, your brand's getting too big or whatever, or if I just need more for me, or I want to launch another line, or I just don't like you anymore. And that's what many companies they find themselves in. How could you have a brand if you don't have production. I never understood that, and that's why many have failed. In regards to our brand, King's Garden, before we launched the brand, we understood that we need to have scale. We need to have sustainable scale that we can fill not one or two or just the local shops with, but the entire state of California in some capacity. And so it was only 2 years after we launched our operation, started producing cannabis, that we actually launched our brand, King's Garden. Because at that point, we knew that now we can sustain it. Now we can be in many stores, and now we can reach the consumer. We don't want someone to pick up King's Garden today and not be able to pick it up tomorrow. No. So now we're pushing out this tremendous volume. It's a machine that's always the same consistency, that's always the same quality, and just in mass quantity across the state. And it's because of that, because it was always priced right, because the quality was always superior, we never spent any dollars on marketing. So through today, we spent zero marketing dollars, zero, nothing.
Wow.
The brand grew, and we're one of the top brands as far as sales are concerned. And some months we were number one in the state, and it's a big state, without spending any marketing dollars at all.
Wow, that's tremendous. And I think that's another kind of big misconception. And, the strategic approach that you took, that first we're going to make sure that we have the supply chain, the manufacturing process, and the product really tight. And then we'll start branding it. And then we can go to town with that. Whereas I think, like you said, so many other people have done it backwards, where, they have the nice logo and the fancy packaging and the this and the that, but they're missing the key ingredient, the biggest piece of the puzzle, which is the actual product. And
yeah, or listen, these companies, they'll come to us, they'll say, okay, we're ready to launch our brand, check out our packaging, wonderful, we want to work with you guys. Okay, we're ready to buy 10 pounds for 2 stores, and then what? Like, I salute the fact that you guys want to do it, but then what? Right? But then what? So especially in this state, you got to come strong, and you got to come with it. Otherwise, the consumer, and look, the consumer is too smart. That's why I told you, indoor cannabis will always be indoor cannabis. uh, Anyone will buy something once. The nice jar, it appeals to, whatever, you'll buy it once. But when you find out that the second time you bought it, well, either the first time it was trash, you won't buy it. Or if you go to buy it the second time, it's a different product, you won't buy it. Right. So it's being able to speak to the consumer. It's being able to, most importantly, in my mind, it has to be a premium product, because product speaks for itself. Right. All of our packaging, I don't know if you've seen, we spent a lot of time on it. It's an experience. We want to give a consumer an experience, and we want to show them lifestyle of King's Garden, what we stand for. You won't see anybody like doing stupid shit on Instagram. Or we're about respect, we're about family, we're about doing things the right way, right? And let the brand speak for itself, let the product speak for itself.
absolutely. To that point, I like to say quality is king and consistency is queen, and you need both. Um,
One more gangster.
nice.
Hi.
Hello.
Everyone is happy somewhere.
So, Michael, I want to ask you, if you have an answer on the technology question, or
Yeah.
or an
Sorry.
innovation that you wish you saw either in cultivation or in the industry in general, like what's on your wish list?
You know what? The only thing I don't think we'll ever get there. Maybe we'll come close. The only thing, and I wouldn't say that I wish for it. I would say that it would be nice, is if quality of LED lights actually uh, got to that point where the product could be produced same as the regular Gavita lights. The reason why is because of the electrical demand. So we have some buildings where we pay For example, for 40,000 square feet of cultivation, where we have 1,000 lights, our bill could be over $120,000 a month, right? So that's crazy. We pay somewhere around 700,000, just a hair under 700,000 a month in electric bills, right? So it's crazy. So if we can get the LED lights to give us the product that's comparable to high intensity bulbs, great. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't think so, because still, I don't care how how you play with it. It's still an LED light, right? It doesn't produce heat by being a LED light, and what we need is heat. We need those bulbs burning at 1,000 watts. We need those bulbs to penetrate the plant, penetrate the cocoa, the medium that we use, and provide that heat, which gives the product that girth, that size, that quality, that smell, and everything else. I don't think we'll ever get there, but I hope we do.
Awesome. And then let me ask you, what's your biggest business challenge today?
Great question. Great question. I wouldn't say that I have any particular business challenge. I would tell you that we're always looking to do better. So it's never sitting back and saying, "Great, we just closed this deal," or "Great, we just accomplished this," or "Great, we just released this packaging." It's okay. You take it in for a second. What's next, right? So the challenge is to keep growing in every aspect of the industry. The challenge is to keep getting better, and even when you think you got fucking tits, but in anything of those, well, you have to not be able to relax, and you can take it in for that day or two, but then you got to keep pushing, because the second you relax, the second you stop growing, there's people gunning for you, right? And so you have to keep going hard in every single aspect. More efficiency, driving costs down, better packaging, expansion. What are we doing with distribution, getting into stores? What's our presence in stores? Getting more street teams out there, getting more customer loyalty. So it's anything and everything on the daily. There's not a single thing that I would tell you I'm comfortable with, because if I say that, then I don't belong here as the CEO of the company. I'm never comfortable, and I'll always keep improving and keep doing more and doing it better.
So I love that answer. That's personally something I struggle with. And so I'm curious, is that something that you had to kind of develop and train yourself over time? Or is that something that's, what's the motivation? Like when you're already successful, when things are going well, things are growing, you've been the number one sales company in California, the number one cannabis market in the world. It's like, and maybe it's part of that relentless drive. But what is it that keeps the fire burning, that keeps you, pursuing that growth and that excellence? How do you keep that up for yourself?
Because I know that if we pause, if we stop, there are many, many, many that would like to take our spot, right? Our spot, wherever that spot is. And so you could never relax, because I'm a competitor by nature. I've been an athlete my whole life, and just in business alone, I want to be the best that I can be, the best our company can be. It doesn't have to be the best, like number one in the world, but the best that we can make it, right? And because I know there's other people gunning for that spot. Listen, there's many great companies in California. There's so many more with much more capital available than us, right? We didn't raise shit if you think about it. What's 55 million bucks? Nothing. There's companies. There's the spec right now. I don't know if you saw the news. That spec acquired or did something with Kaliva, and I think they're sitting on $500 million. It's on NCV if you check it out. They're sitting on $500 million. So, I don't need 500. I need exactly what we have. But when companies like that are sitting out there and they're looking to just, come in, well, fuck, you better fucking kill me for that spot because we won't stop.
Amazing. That's awesome. I love it. So, Michael, it's been such a pleasure to talk with you and hear some of your story. And I'm grateful you took the time out to chat with me today. Before I let you go, I wanted to give you the chance if you have any like closing comments or parting words to, either for me or for the listeners who are aspiring cannabis entrepreneurs and investors or active cannabis entrepreneurs and investors. Any last thoughts for today?
Absolutely. First, I want to thank you and your organization. Thank you for giving us a platform and for doing all the great things that you guys are doing. Lots of respect, and I'm honored to be here with you today. Great job to you personally. Keep killing it. I would like to extend an invite to our facilities when you have a chance to come and visit us in California.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Your team's doors are open. Also, please send me an email with your shirt size. We're going to make sure that we send you a nice package so you can rep our gear in New York and wherever your travels take you. But yeah, I'd love to say thank you to every single one of our investors, every single one, because they didn't believe in us. And we didn't have shit when we raised money. We didn't have nothing except, a story of what we're going to do for them. And some people trusted us with all they had, which would have been $10,000. Some people invested $10,000. Other people invested $13 million, right? So our investors are everywhere between 10,000 and 13 million. And if it was, not without every single one of those people who trusted us, we would not have been successful. I want to acknowledge every single person who worked or currently works for King's Garden. If they worked, that means they weren't that useful. But but if they currently, but I like to look at the best in people. So I would say that everyone played, even if it was a little role, they played that role. But everyone who works for King's Garden and the tremendous responsibilities that they carry, from the trimmers to the packagers, of course, to the managerial team, to all of our legal accountants, everyone. It's a team. It's no one's above that, and no one can do what we do without having an excellent team. Of course, to the consumers who purchase our product, we're forever grateful that they want to come into the store, buy King's Garden, buy our merchandise, wear it out, be proud to be part of our brand, be part of our company. It means the world to us. We'll continue doing what we're doing, keep bringing people, the quality that they're looking for. And everyone out there who, we have or we will be doing business with. We try to do things with integrity, with honor, and we'll continue representing the brand the way that we have been from day one. Nothing changed.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, Michael, thank you so much again for your time today, and keep up the good work. I will definitely take you up on that offer to visit that facility in California one day, and I look forward to one day trying the product. Now I have another reason to go back to Cali.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. Make sure you send me an email with your shirt size, and the package is going out tomorrow.
Hi, Mike Z is. Hi, Mike Z is. Hi, Mike Z is the cannabis business coach. Hi, Mike Z is. Hi, Mike Z is. Hi, Mike Z is the cannabis business coach.